It began with a detail so minute, so utterly trivial, that I still find it hard to accept it led to the unraveling of everything. As I stood in the living room, meticulously folding laundry, Jake's voice echoed from the hallway. "Lorraine, could you lend me a hand with this?" I glanced over to find him positioned near the stairs, his fingers awkwardly grappling with the buckle of his belt. He donned a pair of khaki shorts that draped casually over his hips, the leather strap of the belt contorted in an ungraceful manner. "Could you please make some adjustments to this? It's stuck or something," he remarked, approaching me with a measured stride. "Of course," I replied, placing the neatly folded towels to the side. I moved in closer, my fingers brushing against the belt as I attempted to free the strap from the clasp. "Remain still," I urged, focusing intently. "Apologies," he responded, pausing to hold his breath while I continued my task. As I pulled at the leather, the buckle surrendered, and in an instant, before either of us could respond, his shorts tumbled down to his ankles. Time itself appeared to come to a standstill. My gaze darted downward for just a fleeting moment, an instinct I couldn't suppress, and I took in the scene before hastily averting my eyes. Jake remained motionless, his hands suspended in an uneasy position, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Apologies," he murmured, hastily adjusting his shorts back into place. I took a step back, my cheeks aflame as I fumbled over my words, insisting, "It's fine. It happens." "Indeed," he uttered, his voice taut with tension. "I appreciate your assistance." He pivoted and dashed up the stairs, abandoning me in that moment, my heart pounding and my mind a tempest of thoughts. It was merely an accident, a brief instance of discomfort. Yet the electric atmosphere in the room, the way his gaze held mine for a heartbeat longer before he turned to leave, shifted something within me. Though we remained silent on the matter, an unspoken shift had occurred, altering the fabric of our relationship forever. My union with Alan was far from a tale of romance. It was neither unpleasant nor remarkable, merely a serene and cozy setup that had gradually been losing its warmth over the years. We tied the knot at 44 and 50, each of us emerging from the shadows of previous unions that had not endured. Alan was a creature of habit, dedicating his Saturdays to golf, embarking on monthly fishing excursions, and engaging in a continuous cycle of client dinners that frequently extended into the late hours. I had grown accustomed to the quiet spaces that lingered between us, embracing them as an unspoken agreement, while I occupied my time with acts of kindness, tending to the garden, and maintaining the household's harmony. Then Jake made his entrance. Alan's son from his first marriage had consistently maintained a courteous yet aloof demeanor towards me. I had encountered him only a few times in the early days of my marriage, during the customary holiday gatherings while he was still pursuing his studies in college. In those days, he carried an air of reservation, embodying the familiar awkwardness that young men often exhibit when thrust into the presence of unfamiliar stepmothers. Yet here we are, 6 years later, and the figure standing at our doorstep is no longer the timid teenager etched in my memory. Jake, fresh from the halls of academia, found himself grappling with the uncertainties of the world beyond his studies. His fine arts degree, a source of constant eye-rolling for Alan, hadn't brought about instant success. In the meantime, Alan extended an invitation for him to stay while he navigated his next steps. I was not included in the discussion, yet I raised no objections. The house was sufficiently spacious. The thought of having some company during those lengthy days when Alan was occupied with work or out socializing didn't bother me at all. I was taken aback by the rapid transformation in the atmosphere of the house that Jake's presence brought about. There was a certain effortless quality to him, a genuine allure that drew others in, making them eager for his company. His humor was arid yet captivating, his smile contagious, and his presence infused the vacant corners of the house in a manner that Alan's never could. It began with fleeting instances. On a quiet morning, I found myself trimming the hedges in the backyard when Jake ambled out, a cup of coffee in hand, barefoot and still lingering in the haze of sleep. He reclined by the patio door, observing my efforts with a languid smile. I noted his early rise, casting a glance in his direction. He gave a slight shrug, lifting his cup to his lips for a sip of the steaming coffee. Rest eluded me. Moreover, there must be someone to appreciate the effort you're dedicating to this endeavor. I chuckled gently, a smile playing on my lips as I shook my head. It would be wise to keep that thought from Alan's ears. He believes this garden tends to its own needs effortlessly. Alan tends to overlook things, Jake remarked, his tone relaxed yet incisive. The remark took me by surprise, yet I chose not to pursue it further. Instead, I continued to trim, fully conscious of his gaze resting upon me. As the weeks unfolded, our dialogues deepened, and our exchanges settled into a harmonious cadence within the home. Jake would hover in the kitchen as I prepared our meal, sharing tales from his college years or seeking my counsel on job applications. One afternoon, I discovered him lounging on the couch in the living room, immersed in his sketchbook. "Would you mind if I had a glance?" I inquired, gesturing toward the pad with a nod. He paused briefly, contemplating before relinquishing it. The pages brimmed with elaborate pencil sketches, capturing portraits, landscapes, and abstract designs that seemed to pulse with vitality. "These are truly remarkable," I remarked with sincerity. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's merely an activity I engage in to fill the hours. Consider sharing these with someone, perhaps a gallery or an art director. Your talent is undeniable, Jake." He offered a subtle smile, his gaze locking onto mine. No one has ever expressed that to me before. The gravity of his words lingered in the air, and I experienced a sharp twinge of an emotion I struggled to identify. Then the belt incident occurred, and everything transformed. For days later, the atmosphere surrounding us was thick with an unarticulated tension, a weight that neither of us could find the words to confront. I made every attempt to steer clear of his company, yet it proved to be a fruitless endeavor. The house lay in an unsettling silence, brimming with instances where our paths would unavoidably intersect. One evening, while I was at the sink, immersed in the rhythmic task of washing dishes, Jake entered the kitchen, his hair still glistening from a recent shower. "Lorraine," he murmured, his voice gentle. I turned, my heart pounding at the way he uttered my name. "Indeed," he paused, his hands buried deep within the confines of his jeans pockets. "Concerning the other day, I apologize for the awkwardness of that moment." "It's fine," I replied hastily, redirecting my attention to the sink. "Let us simply put it behind us." "I don't think I can," he admitted, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I stood still, the gravity of his words settling in gradually. I pivoted to confront him, a constriction settling in my chest. Amidst a swirl of conflicting emotions, "Jake, we simply cannot." I began, yet I found myself at a loss for how to conclude the sentence. He advanced, his eyes unwavering. "I understand, I simply—" "Please don't assume that it was insignificant to me." The fervor in his voice rendered me utterly speechless, and for a fleeting moment, we remained perfectly still. Suddenly, Alan's voice rang out from the front door, shattering the enchantment. I replied hastily, glancing back at Jake before moving away. Yet, as I turned to leave, an undeniable change lingered in the air between us, a transformation that was irrevocable. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze of evasion and fleeting looks exchanged in silence. Alan, ever the oblivious one, devoted his evenings to the flickering glow of the television or the company of friends, while Jake and I were left to traverse the treacherous landscape we had unwittingly crafted. On a quiet afternoon, while I meticulously folded laundry in the guest room, Jake suddenly materialized in the doorway. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. After a moment of uncertainty, I finally nodded. "Kindly shut the door, please." He entered the room, closing the door softly behind him. "I don't know how to act around you anymore," he admitted, his voice trembling with vulnerability. "Jake, we must release this," I uttered, my voice quivering. It was merely a fleeting moment, nothing beyond that. "Yet it transcended mere moments for me," he remarked, drawing nearer. His words lingered in the atmosphere, and for the first time, I allowed myself to confront the reality. It was not merely a fleeting instant for me either. There exists a fleeting instant when you sense the impending crossing of a threshold, a moment that, once traversed, irrevocably alters the course ahead. From the moment Jake pressed his lips against mine, I felt it deep within me. This was never part of the plan. None of it ever was. It transpired late one evening after Alan had ventured out to join one of his golf companions' poker gatherings. As I stood in the kitchen, meticulously wiping down the counters, Jake made his entrance. Struggling to find rest? I inquired, casting a sidelong glance in his direction. Something like that, he remarked, leaning against the doorway. He stood barefoot, his hair tousled, and a palpable tension in his posture caused my chest to constrict. We lingered in quietude for a heartbeat, the sole sound being the soft murmur of the refrigerator. His eyes were fixed on me, and when I finally dared to meet his gaze, the intensity within it took my breath away. "Lorraine," he murmured, stepping closer with a gentle intent. "Jake, don't," I whispered, my pulse racing with each word. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his voice a calm whisper. "You must," I responded, my voice quivering. "This is incorrect, and you are aware of that." "I understand," he said, stepping closer, "but that doesn't alter my feelings." And then he pressed his lips against mine. Initially, there was a hesitance in his approach, as if he anticipated my rejection. Yet I remained unmoved. I was unable to. As I finally withdrew, my heart raced wildly, and I found it difficult to meet his gaze. "This cannot happen again," I murmured, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He nodded, yet the expression in his eyes revealed a deep-seated skepticism. I didn't either. The ensuing days unfolded in a tempest of fleeting encounters and hushed yearning. We attempted to maintain the facade that everything remained the same, yet the palpable tension between us was undeniable. Each look, each unintentional brush of skin resonated with an intensity, heavy with the significance of all that we had become. I wasn't suggesting that Alan was completely oblivious. Rather, his focus was scattered among his job, his companions, and his myriad of pastimes. Yet, despite his lingering distraction, an unsettling sensation gnawed at me, as if we were toying with flames. On the second occasion, it unfolded in the garden. The morning had slipped away as I tended to the roses, the sun casting a warm glow upon my back, when I felt Jake's presence behind me. "You're always out here," he remarked, his voice slicing through the quietude. "Serene," I responded without looking back. He advanced, his shadow enveloping me. "It seems to me that you prefer to keep your distance." My breath hitched, yet I willed myself to remain composed. "I'm not quite sure I follow you." "Don't you?" he asked, his voice a gentle yet persistent whisper. I pivoted to confront him, a weight settling in my chest as our eyes locked. This time there was an absence of hesitation, a complete lack of opportunity to convince myself otherwise. He pressed his lips to mine once more, and this time I responded in kind. What started as ephemeral instances swiftly evolved into a force beyond our grasp. Initially, we exercised caution, seeking out the hushed nooks of the house where interruptions would be kept at bay. Yet, as the moments unfolded, our courage blossomed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the windows, Jake and I settled into the library, the quiet sanctuary of books, while Alan attended a client dinner. I feigned an effort to arrange the shelves, my hands quivering as he loomed behind me. "You're trembling," he whispered, his breath a gentle warmth against my neck. I assured him I was fine, yet my voice revealed the truth I tried to conceal. He rested his hands on my shoulders, gently guiding me to meet his gaze. "There's no need for fear," he murmured gently. "I once felt fear in your presence, but now I stand unafraid. I find myself apprehensive about our current actions." He cradled my face in his hands, his eyes unwavering. "Cease your contemplation on the matter. Simply stay by my side." I felt the urge to argue, to express that we couldn't continue down this path, yet the words eluded me. Instead, I surrendered to his embrace, and for the first time in years, a spark of life ignited within me. The clandestine nature of our relationship only heightened its fervor. Each stolen moment resonated as an act of defiance against the life I had come to accept, a poignant reminder that passion and desire still lay hidden beneath the monotony of my marriage. Yet, alongside the exhilaration, there lingered a sense of trepidation. One afternoon, while Jake and I lounged on the couch in the living room, Alan arrived home sooner than we had anticipated. "Lorraine," he called from the hallway. I sprang to my feet, my heart pounding as Jake swiftly retreated to the far corner of the room. Within these confines, I returned the call, striving to maintain a calm tone. Alan entered, his gaze flitting between us. He remarked with a casual tone, though his gaze lingered on Jake, revealing an unspoken tension. "Just catching up," Jake said smoothly, his posture at ease. Alan nodded, yet the glance he cast my way as he turned to leave sent an unsettling chill coursing through me. No matter how cautious we tried to be, the truth grew increasingly difficult to conceal. Alan started to pose inquiries, initially gentle in nature but gradually becoming more incisive. "You and Jake appear to be quite compatible," he observed one evening while we gathered around the dinner table. "He's been quite the assistance around the house," I responded, managing a smile. Alan nodded, his face a mask of inscrutability. "It brings me comfort to know that you have someone by your side while I attend to my tasks." His words carried an elusive quality that I couldn't identify, and I sensed the color drain from my cheeks. The initial fissure appeared when Jake's closest companion, Grant, arrived unexpectedly. Grant possessed a boisterous personality, unyielding opinions, and an uncanny ability to uncover what others sought to conceal. "You've been spending quite a bit of time at home," Grant remarked to Jake one afternoon, his tone playful yet his gaze piercing. "Just lending a hand," Jake responded nonchalantly. "It must be nice," Grant remarked, his eyes briefly meeting mine. "Having a companion by your side." A shiver ran down my spine at the comment, prompting me to excuse myself swiftly, leaving them to their solitude. Eventually, Jake discovered me in the kitchen, his demeanor fraught with tension. "Grant possesses knowledge," he murmured softly. His conjecture, I responded, though my voice trembled. Jake gave a slow, deliberate shake of his head. "He's not foolish, Laura. He will come to understand it." As the weeks unfolded, the atmosphere within the house became increasingly oppressive. Alan's doubts, Grant's comments, the burden of our hidden truth. It all loomed like a tempest on the verge of unleashing its fury. Yet, as the perils intensified, so too did my emotions for Jake, and regardless of how treacherous the situation became, I found myself unable to part ways with him. Maintaining a secret resembles the act of submerging oneself beneath the surface, where the weight of the water becomes increasingly unbearable, ultimately leading to a breaking point. Jake and I excelled at concealment, yet the fissures in our pretense were widening. Alan possessed intelligence, as did Grant. And then there was Heather, Alan's colleague, who skillfully transformed her casual visits into something decidedly more intrusive. As the weeks rolled by, Heather made her way to our doorstep one Saturday afternoon, uninvited yet effortlessly comfortable. She had visited the house on several occasions, each time cloaked in the guise of delivering something for Alan. This time, she arrived bearing a bottle of wine and an overly radiant smile. "I thought I'd stop by," she said, entering the kitchen where I was busy chopping vegetables. "Alan shared that you've been experiencing a bit of overwhelm recently. I thought you might appreciate a diversion." "I'm fine," I replied, mustering a smile that felt more like a mask than a reflection of my true feelings. "Nonetheless, I appreciate it." Heather set the bottle down on the counter and leaned against the island, her gaze sweeping across the room as if she were meticulously recording each detail. "This location is absolutely stunning. Your efforts have truly transformed this space into a warm and inviting home." "Thank you," I replied with a hint of restraint. Her eyes remained fixed on the back door, the very threshold through which Jake had just departed moments ago. "Alan is fortunate to have you, along with Jake. Naturally. He truly is an invaluable presence here. Wouldn't you agree?" My heart raced, yet I maintained a facade of calmness. "He has truly excelled. Having him around is quite pleasant." Heather's lips formed a smile, yet it failed to illuminate her eyes. "I have no doubt about it." As the weeks unfolded, Heather's presence grew increasingly frequent. She crafted reasons to visit, cloaked in the pretense of duty, yet her true intention was unmistakable. She cast her line into the depths, searching for something elusive, though I couldn't discern whether it was knowledge she sought or the very essence of Alan himself. You know, she said one afternoon as we sat in the heart of the home. Alan tends to keep his personal life under wraps, yet I can't shake the feeling that all isn't quite right between the two of you. I tightened my fingers, clutching the teacup resting in my lap. Every marriage, as one might expect, comes with its own set of challenges, Heather remarked, her voice tinged with a veneer of insincere compassion. However, I have no doubt that having Jake nearby is beneficial. He appears to be quite attentive. The meaning behind her words was clear, and a surge of panic welled up in my chest. And then came Grant. Jake's best friend had always been refreshingly candid, often crossing the line into rudeness. Yet now his remarks seemed to slice even deeper. "You've been spending quite a bit of time with Lorraine," Grant remarked one evening, as he and Jake lounged on the patio, beers in hand. Jake shrugged, maintaining a nonchalant tone. "She is my stepmother. Naturally, we will engage in conversation." "Indeed, it goes beyond that, doesn't it?" Grant pressed on, his gaze sharp and unwavering. Jake tightened his grip on the bottle. "What is it that you wish to convey?" "You're behaving oddly," Grant remarked, "and I don't believe it's solely due to the work situation. There's an undercurrent at play, and I suspect it revolves around her." Jake rose suddenly, the sound of his chair grating against the stone echoing in the stillness. "You have no idea what you're saying," Grant said, his eyes narrowing. "Do I not?" The atmosphere within the house thickened, becoming almost suffocating. Each encounter with Alan resembled a precarious balancing act. While every appearance from Heather seemed like an inevitable trial I was fated to falter in. And Jake, oh Jake, he was growing bolder, his frustration with our secrecy rising like a tide, ready to spill over. One evening, as we lingered in the library, he turned to me, his expression resolute. "I can't continue down this path," he remarked. "Jake, we must tread carefully," I said, my voice quivering. "Being careful simply won't suffice," he retorted. "Grant harbors a sense of suspicion. Heather is on the prowl, and Alan possesses more awareness than you might assume." I averted my gaze, feeling the sting of tears threatening to spill from the corners of my eyes. "What do you propose? Should we cease?" He edged nearer, his voice taking on a gentler tone. "I understand that it's not something I can accomplish. We must determine our course of action, for this situation is simply not sustainable." The moment of reckoning arrived at a dinner party that Alan was determined to host. Heather was present, naturally, accompanied by several of Alan's colleagues. Grant made his entrance as well, his invitation a generous gesture from Jake. The evening began with an air of innocence, filled with polite conversation, laughter, and the gentle clinking of wine glasses. Yet, as the evening progressed, the ambience transformed. "So, Lorraine," Heather said, her voice slicing through the murmur of conversation, "how do you keep yourself occupied with Alan gone so often?" I stood still, her question laden with unspoken meaning. I responded with a casual air, maintaining a light-hearted tone, tending to the garden, immersing myself in books, and assisting Jake with various projects. Heather's smile took on a sharper edge. "Seems you are quite near, then." Across the table, Grant arched an eyebrow, his eyes darting toward Jake. "Indeed, Jake has been frequenting this place quite a bit lately. It seems quite reasonable." Lorraine is rather approachable in conversation. The room was enveloped in a hush, the gravity of his statement lingering like a heavy fog. Alan cast a glance between us, his face a mask of inscrutability, as Heather leisurely savored her wine. With a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes, Jake abruptly pushed back his chair. "Pardon me," he murmured, stepping out of the room. I decided to see how he was doing, rising swiftly before anyone had the chance to intervene. In the garden, I discovered Jake, moving restlessly beneath the gentle illumination of the patio lights. "This was a mistake," he said as I drew near. "What was it?" I inquired, my heart racing. "Everything," he responded, his voice strained with irritation. "Allowing Grant to come here, feigning that all is well. It is far from fine, Lorraine. It has disintegrated." I extended my hand, letting it lightly graze his arm. "We shall find a way." He glanced my way, his gaze brimming with a sense of urgency. "In what manner?" As I find myself depleting the avenues to maintain this cohesion. Before I could utter a word, the crunch of footsteps on the gravel halted us in our tracks. I glanced over to find Alan positioned at the garden's periphery, his features obscured by shadow, yet his stance remained unwavering. "What's happening out here?" he inquired, his tone dark and menacing. Alan lingered at the garden's edge, his silhouette stark against the gentle illumination of the patio lights. A palpable tension hung in the air beside me, where Jake sat, and for a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us all. The silence enveloped us, a palpable weight, while my thoughts scrambled for words, any words, that might shatter the tension thickening around us. "Alan," I remarked, mustering a smile, "we were merely engaged in conversation." He cut in, his tone cutting through the air. He advanced a step, his eyes darting between me and Jake. "Isn't it amusing how the two of you appear to have an endless stream of conversation lately?" Jake clenched his jaw, a tension building within him. "Is there an issue at hand?" Alan's lips twisted into a chilling smile.
"I'm uncertain, Jake."
"Ought there to be?" The impact of his words struck me like a blow to the stomach, leaving me momentarily breathless. It had transcended mere suspicion. He was certain of it now. "I think I'll head inside," Jake said, his voice steady yet strained. "No," Alan snapped, his voice sharp and final, leaving no room for dissent. "You will remain right here." Jake lingered in uncertainty, yet he remained still. Alan shifted his gaze toward me, his eyes shadowed and intense. "Could you shed some light on why my wife and son are quietly slipping away into the garden during our dinner party?" My lips parted, yet the words eluded me. The tension reached a breaking point. The following day, Alan exuded an even greater chill, his terse words and frosty glances unmistakably signaling that he intended to pursue this matter further. Jake attempted to maintain his distance, yet this only exacerbated the situation. Heather, naturally, discovered a means to weave herself into the tumult. The awkwardness was impossible to overlook. "Last night was just a misunderstanding," she remarked, cradling her coffee cup in the warmth of the kitchen. I responded, making an effort to maintain a cheerful tone. "It was merely a misunderstanding." Heather inclined her head, her smile overly saccharine, lacking authenticity. "Certainly, but Lorraine, it would be wise to exercise caution. Perceptions hold a perilous weight, particularly in circumstances such as these." Her words dripped with a subtle menace, and I could sense the thrill she derived from each moment. Later that evening, the true twist unfolded. Alan summoned me into the study, his composure steady yet disquieting. "I've been pondering," he remarked, reclining in his chair. "Perhaps the moment has come for us to embrace some transformations." In a tone that suggested familiarity, Alan remarked, "Jake's been here long enough," as he spoke with a hint of nonchalance. "It seems the moment has come for him to embark on a new journey, to seek out a space of his own." My heart plummeted. Alan is still in the process of finding his way, and perhaps he can do so in a different setting. Alan cut in, his eyes steely. "This matter is not open for discussion, Lorraine." Upon sharing the news with Jake, his response was nothing short of explosive. "He's kicking me out," Jake said, his voice escalating, a reflection of the heated discussion taking place in the garden. "He harbors a sense of suspicion." "Jake," I said, striving to maintain a steady tone. He ponders what exactly?" Jake erupted. "There's an air of intrigue afoot. That is his issue to contend with, not ours." I rested my hand on his arm, seeking to bring him some measure of calm. "We understood the inherent risk, and we must not allow this to escalate further." Jake shook his head, his jaw tight with tension. "His actions are not driven by suspicion. His actions stem from a desire to exert control over you, and I refuse to allow that to happen." That fateful night, when Alan urged Jake to depart, marked the onset of their unraveling. "You have a week to pack your things," Alan stated during dinner, his voice steady yet resolute. With a sudden movement, Jake's fork clanged against his plate, echoing the tension in the air as he rose to his feet. "You do not hold the power to dictate my departure." "This is my house," Alan replied, his voice cold and unyielding. "I can no longer endure this situation. What is there to tolerate?" Jake retorted, his voice escalating with intensity. "My presence here, or my ability to draw nearer to Lorraine than you ever could." The atmosphere grew heavy with silence, and I sensed the color ebbing from my cheeks. Alan's demeanor shifted, a shadow crossing his features as he rose, his voice a low, menacing whisper. "Leave this house now, or you will come to wish you hadn't stayed." That evening, I discovered Jake in his chamber, his suitcase only partially filled. "You can't let him win," he said, his voice taut with fury. "This isn't about winning," I said, my voice quivering with emotion. "This narrative revolves around the essence of endurance." He faced me, his gaze aflame with intensity. "You are not obligated to remain in this place. There is no obligation for you to remain by his side." "I have no choice," I whispered, tears cascading down my cheeks. "There's always a choice," Jake said, moving in closer. "Join me on this journey." His words lingered in the atmosphere, and for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to envision abandoning it all, embarking on a new beginning in a distant place. Yet, the weight of that realization bore down upon me, and I found myself shaking my head in disbelief. "I cannot," I uttered, my voice trembling. Jake regarded me for an extended moment before finally nodding in acknowledgement. "Then I'll go," he said softly. "Yet this is far from the end." When dawn broke, Jake had vanished. Alan remained silent, leaving me to roam the desolate house, a ghost in the stillness. Yet, the true surprise arrived that evening as I discovered a note discreetly placed beneath my bedroom door. "You believe you've triumphed, Alan, yet you remain oblivious to the reality that lies beneath. I will ensure that you do, Heather." My hands quivered as I perused the note, the weight of its implications settling in. Heather was aware. She had witnessed something, caught a snippet of conversation, and now she was leveraging it to her benefit. The note from Heather felt like a ticking bomb cradled in my hands. I remained motionless in my bedroom, my eyes scanning the words repeatedly until they melded into a haze. My initial impulse was to face her directly, to insist on understanding what she believed she held over me. Yet the reality was I had already. She was acutely aware that she had witnessed or overheard enough to assemble a narrative fraught with peril, and in that moment, she possessed all the power. 2 days later, the confrontation unfolded. Once more, Heather took it upon herself to drop by, this time cloaked in the guise of delivering some paperwork for Alan. I trapped her in the kitchen, my voice a hushed blade as I extended the note toward her. "What could this possibly be?" I insisted, my hands quivering with intensity. Heather remained utterly unperturbed. She rested against the counter, a subtle smirk dancing on her lips. "Precisely what it states. Surely Alan is entitled to the truth, wouldn't you agree?" "There's nothing to share," I replied hastily, though my voice trembled. Heather arched an eyebrow, her face suffused with a veneer of feigned compassion. "Oh, Lorraine, surely you can't truly believe that, can you? Your glances exchanged with Jake have not gone unnoticed by me. I see clearly." My chest constricted, and I moved nearer, softening my tone. "You are mistaken if you believe this will sway me. I refuse to allow you to tear my family apart." Heather chuckled gently, a smile playing on her lips as she shook her head. "Are you really considering tearing apart your family, Lorraine? You have already accomplished that. I am merely hastening what is destined to occur." Before I could utter a word, Alan's voice echoed through the hallway, causing Heather's smile to broaden even further. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'll take care of the timing." That evening, Alan sat in silence, his demeanor more subdued than normal, a palpable tension hanging in the air as he absent-mindedly prodded at his meal. Heather had departed hours ago, yet her essence remained, casting a shadow over the house. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, leaving me uncertain if she had uttered a single syllable to him. Yet the silence enveloping us felt utterly stifling. At last, Alan placed his fork aside and turned his gaze toward me. "Lorraine, is there something on your mind that you wish to share with me?" My heart ceased to beat. I conjured a smile, masking my bewilderment. "Could you clarify what you mean?" Alan reclined in his chair, his gaze sharpening. "Your behavior has taken a peculiar turn of late. And then there's Heather, subtly alluding to matters that elude my comprehension. If there's anything happening, now is the moment to share it with me." A surge of panic welled within me, yet I maintained my poise. "Alan, there is absolutely nothing happening. Heather seems to be seeking attention through controversy. You're aware of her nature." Alan hesitated, his words caught in a web of uncertainty, before finally nodding with deliberation. "I hope you're right," he said, his voice laden with caution. "For if I were to discover otherwise—" He left the sentence hanging, yet it was unnecessary to complete it. That night, slumber eluded me. As I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling, a whirlwind of possibilities danced through my mind. Heather's menace hung in the air, while Alan's increasing doubt turned each action into a precarious dance with impending doom. Just as I began to surrender to the embrace of sleep, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I seized it, my heart racing as I absorbed the words. "Meet me tomorrow noon at the park by the bridge, Jake." The following day, I departed from the house, cloaked in the guise of attending to errands. With my hands firmly clutching the steering wheel, I navigated the road to the park, my thoughts swirling with curiosity about what Jake might have to share. Upon my arrival, he stood by the bridge, his hands buried deep within the confines of his jacket pockets. "You shouldn't have contacted me," I said, drawing closer, my voice quivering with emotion. "I did not possess," he responded, his gaze shadowed by irritation. Heather approached, and I inhaled deeply, feeling as though the very earth was trembling beneath my feet. "She knows Lorraine," Jake said, his voice a hushed whisper, laced with urgency. "She possesses a wealth of knowledge, and she's wielding it to reach Alan." My stomach twisted in knots. "What words did she share with you?" "She desired my confession," he remarked with a touch of bitterness, urging me to reveal the truth to Alan. "She's manipulating us both, Lorraine." With my eyes shut tight, I felt the heavy burden of the situation bearing down upon me. "Time is slipping away," I murmured. Jake extended his hand toward mine, his touch anchoring me in the moment. "We must take action before she makes her move."